We are going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session of the Behavioral Health Learning event. My name is Courtney Wheeler. I am one of the Public Health Program Managers here at the National Indian Health Board, and I'll be moderating this session today. We're grateful to have Dr. Gray and Jasmine Alpin joining us to present on elder abuse and neglect. This presentation will last about an hour, so we'll end around 3:15. I just want to remind everyone it is being recorded. So we are asking everyone to please stay muted until myself or the presenters ask you to unmute and engage. You can type your questions and comments in the chat box here in the Zoom room. And the presenters will take time to either answer your questions at the end of the session or throughout the presentation. I will leave that up to them how they would like to do that. At the end of the session, please make sure you use the sign out link that you received via email. You will need to do that in order to receive your CE credits. Once you complete that portion, you'll be sent to the session evaluation. We ask that you please take a few moments to complete the evaluation. It helps us make sure the sessions that we do provide meet your needs and also help us plan for future webinars. So thank you again for joining us this afternoon and for your participation. I will now pass it on to Dr. Gray and let her begin her presentation.
Thank you, and it's great to be with you this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me while I get that set up. There's a few things with technology that don't always work the way we intend. Okay. So my name is Jacky Gray. I'm a Choctaw Cherokee descendant, and I am director of the National Indigenous Elder Justice Initiative. Okay. I'm having trouble getting it to advance the slides. Ah, there we go. So the National Indigenous Elder Justice Initiative, or NIJI, is a national resource center for tribal elder abuse programs, and it's funded by the Administration for Community Living. It was established in 2011 to develop the resources and maintain a repository for culturally relevant elder abuse prevention information for American Indians, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiians. And the mission of NIJI is to restore respect and dignity by honoring our Indigenous elderly. So in 2009, there were the people 65 and older made up about 13% of the US population. And it's estimated at the current rate by 2030, they'll make up almost 20%. Now, incidents of elder abuse or neglect are expected to increase with that growth in elder population. And if we look at the graph, you can see how it's expected for the number of American Indians and Alaska Natives over 65 to triple between 2014 and 2060. 90% of elder abuse. So, if we look at what that implication of those increased numbers are, 90% of elder abuse is committed by a family member. And elders who have been abused are 200% higher risk of death than those who have not been mistreated. Nationally, financial abuse costs older Americans almost $3 billion a year. And that was as of 2013. And it's increased greatly, especially here during the pandemic. There have been all kinds of financial abuse and scams related to the COVID funding. And many of those numbers are expected to be underreported because they are either really love the person that's exploiting them or fear that that abuser will retaliate against them. So what is elder abuse? Well, according to the National Center on Elder Abuse generally refers to any of the following types of mistreatment that are committed by someone with whom the elder has a special relationship. For example, a spouse, a sibling, a child, a friend, or a caregiver. So those types, there are 7 types that the National Center on Elder Abuse identifies: physical abuse, emotional or psychological abuse, sexual abuse, financial or material exploitation, neglect, self-neglect, and abandonment. Now, according to Gray, Labori, and Carter, there's an additional type of abuse commonly affecting Native American elders, and that's spiritual abuse. And when we first started in 2011, whenever I would speak to a group, I would hear back from elders repeatedly, well, what about spiritual abuse? What about spiritual abuse? So we started doing some looking into it and wrote a paper addressing what spiritual abuse was. Now, spiritual abuse is defined as harmful interference with spiritual growth, including the corruption of another's personal value system. Some examples may include preventing an elder from attending spiritual activities or ceremonies, theft of an elder's ceremonial items to sell or use without permission, comments or activities that are damaging to the elder's spirit, or sexual abuse as a spiritual activity, sexualized touching, molesting, or rape as part of spiritual healing or ceremonies. Now, another of the types of abuse and neglect that's commonly misunderstood is self-neglect. And self-neglect is characterized as a behavior of an elderly person that threatens his or her personal health or safety. Now, it can manifest in an elder as a refusal or failure to provide themselves with adequate nutrition, clothing, shelter, personal hygiene, medication, and safety precautions. The definition of self-neglect excludes a situation in which a mentally competent elder who understands the consequences of his or her decisions makes a conscious and voluntary choice to engage in acts that threaten his or her health or safety. I often in presentations get asked about, okay, what about the alcoholic that knows that they're killing themselves? Well, that's where this second bullet applies, in that if they are competent and they know the consequences of what they're doing and they choose to continue it, they have choice. When you're working with minors, they don't have that choice, but with adults, they do. Some examples of self-neglect include lacking food or basic utilities, refusing medications, or hoarding. We just passed World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, which is held on June 15th each year. And this began in 2006 by the International Network for Prevention of Elder Abuse and the World Health Organization. And NEJI held its first event in 2012. But tribal WEAD events are held on June 15th and at other times throughout the year. There are frequently Elder Abuse Awareness Days, conferences, and other events held by tribes. I wanted to share a little bit about our NEJI website, because that's where we really have all of our resources. This is our landing page, and we try to have the most current events right up there in the front. First of all, we let people know that if it's an emergency, if you need to report elder abuse, you need to call 911 or go to our state and tribal hotlines, and we have lists of local numbers in order to do that. But we are not a reporting agency. We have the COVID-19 resources right up front. There was a webinar I recently did on restorative justice. We've got that. We just currently finished up our T survey, which is on tribal elder abuse services, new fact sheets. All of those things are right up on the landing page. Now, if we go to the first tab, which is resources, you'll get a drop down that has a whole list of topics that are listed mostly alphabetically. But you can click on those and it'll take you right to other information. Also, we have our Native Elder Protection Team Toolkit, a little notice about that on the right-hand side, as well as elder abuse warning signs and where you can get more information about that. The next tab, well, the Elder Protection Team and that toolkit, the Elder Protection Team addresses the issues of elder abuse. It depends on the resources in your community. Every community is a little different. So who you may have that might be a part of that Elder Protection Team may vary. But the responsibilities can include educating the community and conducting prevention activities, building collaboration and trust among the professionals, elders, and families, providing empathetic listening, implementing an effective method for responding to elder abuse while maintaining confidentiality, reporting suspected abuse and intervening when necessary, and restoring respect to those elders. And the team is usually made up of, all those different resources within the community, someone from each of those services that can provide input when that may be needed in helping to find and address the needs of that elder. And the Elder Protection Team always includes the elder. Due to the complexity of elder abuse and the makeup of the team, it's very individualized, but this is kind of how it might be conceptualized, with the elder in the center and all the other different services surrounding that elder to support them. Our next tab are the elder abuse codes. And the elder abuse code is very important. First of all, when we started in 2012, there were only about 40 tribes in the whole United States that had an elder protection code. As of 2019, that number was up over 100. And all of the tribes that have allowed us to link to their elder protection code, we have listed by state. You can click on those. If your tribe needs to develop an elder protection code, there are all these examples that you can take a look at and see what might help you. On the right, where it says code examples, we have a civil tribal elder protection code that deals a lot with protective orders and things like that. A criminal tribal elder protection code, and a sample resolution authorizing the development of an elder abuse code for the tribe. So those are all resources. We have them all right there together to try to help you. We want to give you as much information as we can to help in developing those codes, because without them, you really have no means of enforcement of anything as far as any harm to any of the elders. Another thing that we have that I mentioned at the very beginning are our state and tribal hotlines. So if you go to that tab, the map of the United States that I have down there at the bottom will pop up. You can either click on the state or you can scroll down and they're listed alphabetically and you can click on the name of the state. Either way, they both work. And then hotlines for that state will pop up. It'll list tribal hotlines, it'll list state hotlines, it'll list things by county so that you can find the resource that you need right there. There are over 7,000 numbers in this interactive map. So we've had a lot of use of that in trying to find information. The next tab we have is for training, and we've developed a number of interactive training models that are engaging. They're accessible for people because they don't have videos on them. They don't require as much bandwidth to be able to use them, but they're interactive. So, and they have audio. So it makes it a lot more pleasant for trying to go through them. We've had a lot of positive response to them. These are trainings for professionals. It includes a basic module on elder abuse and what it is. The policy module also includes information about the elder abuse codes and the Elder Protection Team Toolkit. Legal includes information about various powers of attorney and competency assessment. Healthcare providers provides a lot of information about recognizing elder abuse, about different cultural aspects for American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian, and also talks about shared decision-making and inclusion of traditional healers, and the use of herbs and supplements, and how talking with the provider about that in order to make sure that there's no interactions with their medications. Financial exploitation, we just updated. And it includes a lot more information about scams and all kinds of things related to pandemics, hurricanes, wildfires, all kinds of disasters. We have modules for social services and caregivers, which we're in the midst of updating. We just put out the one on medication issues, which also includes opioids. And we're working now on one on behavioral health for behavioral health providers, and hope to have that finished by the fall. But the website is down there at the bottom, or you can just go to the main page and click on training. This is what the page looks like. And as I listed, there's the modules on the left, but the medicine wheel, each of the feathers are hot. So if you click on one of those, it'll take you to that module for training. Down below, it lists each of the modules, gives an approximate length, and lets you know a little bit about what it's about. We've just recently developed fact sheets for all of the modules, so I put them all in here. I'm not sure if they make these PowerPoints available to you, but these are all pasted on. They aren't just a screenshot of them. So if it's sent out as is, you'd be able to even pull it off of here, but you can get them from the web page. And like the policy manual or the policy module will have the policy fact sheet there. Social services the same way. Capacity and consent will be with legal as well, the legal issues. All of those where you can easily find them and associate them with the module they go with. These are some additional fact sheets. We get information requesting that we develop things for certain topics. The physical distancing is being a good relative. We developed related to COVID-19 to go into boxes of food delivered to the elders, and gave some information about scammers and things like that, as well as things they can do and ways that they could stay socially engaged during the pandemic. The Two-Spirit Elders one we just developed, and then also the one on intimate partner violence. And then our final tab is on data, and we have several surveys that we're doing. We're also have an elder maltreatment survey that tribes can work with us. We'll get you the surveys. You have to get the resolution. to participate in it. It's your data. You collect the data. We send it back to us. We'll analyze it and get you some information. And we'll have more information that'll be going up on that tab as we develop it. And same way with the tribal elder abuse services, we plan to have more on that within the next couple of months. And at this point, there are some resources on here, and I'm going to pass it over to Jasmine because my voice is about gone right now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gray, for that. Thank you. And Courtney, thank you if you could help me with my PowerPoint. I am not as technologically advanced as Dr. Gray is. So thank you. Yep, thank you. Well, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Jasmine Applin. I work at ACL. For those of you who know Cynthia LeCount, she is actually my supervisor. So I work on Cynthia's team and we work on Title VI. So I'm going to give a little bit of a brief overview of the Title VI program. I'm sure most of you know what it is. I just want to kind of give you an overview. Title VI is a grant program that provides grants directly to tribal organizations, consortiums, or individual tribes. There's two parts of the grant that we provide services for. We provide them for nutrition and supportive services under our Part A and B, and that's for the benefit of the tribal elders, so the nutrition and supportive services, which is usually people over the age of 55, but the tribe can determine their own age of eligibility. And then the other part of it is Part C, where we provide caregiver services to benefit the caregivers that take care of our tribal elders. So there's two parts to the Title VI program. And the reason that I wanted to talk to you guys today is because we wanted to talk about social isolation as a really important component of elder abuse and making sure that elders do not experience that horror. Because especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, we really had conversations with our directors and our elders about how being socially isolated could lead to some of these issues. And so we kind of I wanted to jump onto the conversation and talk about social isolation, particularly in tribal communities, because I think there are some differences between what we would think about social isolation and the challenges that you would have if you live like in Milwaukee. It's different if you live on a reservation. And, I think we should talk about some of the ways that it's different. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So what we'll talk about today, like I said, is the unique challenges facing tribal communities in this social isolation space. Partially because, again, very different. We found that there are very different challenges because of COVID-19. We're going to talk about kind of the importance of community. We found that that's, not the end all be all, and an antidote to social isolation, but it is important and it does help when we have strong communities around us. So we're going to talk about some of the ways that we've had our wonderful Title VI program exemplify strengthening communities. And that's the last thing is, our programs have used innovative ways to combat social isolation, and and I wanted to share the impacts. I wanted to share some of those ideas with you because I think they're wonderful. If we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So first thing about these unique challenges is I think the rural nature of tribal communities. Many tribes are in incredibly rural areas. I know Jacky Gray and I went up to Minnesota last year. Geez, Jacky, that was last year. It feels like it was like both yesterday and a lifetime ago in certain respects. And I remember as a just kind of like a little fun story, I did not rent a car because I just did not understand, how very rural it was. And then I got off the plane and called the cab company and they were like, yeah, that's going to be like an hour. And I was like, okay, so I'm from the DC, I live in the DC area. I was a little shocked by the fact that it was going to be like an hour to get a cab to the hotel from the airport in Bemidji, Minnesota. But I mean, it's rural. There are definitely some parts of our program that are at extreme, even in frontier communities in Alaska, where you're taking barges to get your basic necessities, those types of things. And I think one of the challenges that faces with that is not only do you think of the challenges with your basic needs and that causing stress, but also some of the connectivity challenges we've heard about repeatedly throughout the pandemic. Is there broadband access, internet access? Those are very hard things. So it's very hard to stay connected to one's family when you're kind of dependent on that kind of technology and it's just not available in your area. And I mean, then the other part of it is the, access to services that we don't kind of have in rural and frontier areas like we have in major cities, and services like mental health services and legal services. Those are kind of not as accessible as you would have in a major city. Some other unique challenges that I think another unique challenge that I think is important to address when we're talking about tribal elders and what we found in our program is some of the unique pressures that grandparents raising grandchildren can have, especially with kiddos being home for a prolonged period of time because of the pandemic. Grandma's now doing the teacher role as well as the manager role in the household, and I think that some of those challenges can be huge stressors to not only the elder but the family. And I think what we've really highlighted is during the pandemic is like making sure kiddos get a good education while they're home can be a very big challenge to the elder as the grandparent, when they're wearing a lot of different hats. I think, the last challenge I really want to talk about is cultural competency and, giving messages in a way that are respectful and appropriate. I mean, this goes back to like languages. It goes back to respecting people's calendars. If there's major events, not trying to reach elders at that particular point. I think that one of the things we found during the pandemic was that, it's all fine and good to talk about social isolation, but we need to talk about it in a way that is respectful of people's language, respectful of people's responsibilities too. Like, obviously, no one wants to be told, hey, you're taking care of your grandkids and that's causing you to be so, like, thanks, but that's my grandkid and I love them. And, I think there's a lot of importance in recognizing the importance of family and the importance of people's roles, and how I mean, just from my perspective, a lot of elders are very integrated into their community. They've served very important roles with a lot of hats. And so part of that cultural competency piece, I would say, we found is recognizing that and messaging about social isolation and kinds of things people should be aware of in a way that also respects the important role our elders play in the community. Next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you. And this is, this kind of goes to that is when we talk about, kind of touched on the importance of community a little bit. And this is more for, a Title VI perspective. Like I said, our program provides services to Native elders, and we have directors for our 282 programs, all have a director. And, those directors can wear a lot of hats. So I think that's a challenge, is sometimes, the person that is kind of identifying these social isolation issues also has their own many hats to wear. So I think just being aware of that, that challenge is kind of, the many, and I'm sure everybody knows that, the many hats people wear in Indian country, and it makes it challenging to kind of recognize social isolation. But I think that one of the things we found is that people are carrying many burdens, but there are many people carrying many burdens and they're not alone. So I think, the importance of community this kind of underscores the importance of community, and like what we have found in combating social isolation, not only for our elders, but for the people who are working on our program and feeling the pressure throughout the pandemic, was just to talk about it. I think that was a really important part. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here are some things we've done from the ACL perspective to address the kind of social isolation issues we have seen throughout the country. And, again, I think that talking about things as a community and like, what works well for your community more than somebody sitting in DC does, that's obvious. But we've done some things to address kind of feelings of social isolation at the national level. One of the things we've done is that we have a chat every Thursday. It's from 3 to 4 Eastern time. And on that chat, we just kind of invite people to gather. We invite our program staff to gather. And we talk about different components of the program, but we also answer questions, and we just kind of try to be there for each other. And, Dr. Gray was able to present to us a couple of weeks ago on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. It might have even been last week or it was 2 weeks ago. Don't worry, I have 9 weeks are merging together. It was 2 weeks ago. And present about all of the wonderful tools that her team develops. And I think, we've found these chats to be an excellent opportunity for us all to kind of get together and talk. And it's been really great. Another thing that I will flag as far as a resource is that we have kind of used SAMHSA's Office of Tribal Affairs and Policy in these chats. It used to be Dr. Alex Thundercloud that was directing that office. I believe he's moved on to IHS, but Dr. Thundercloud facilitated some lovely conversations about mental health and about social isolation, and really got people talking about, what they needed. And that was just really great. So, I think the take home message that we've seen is that yes, it is a significant problem, probably having unique impacts in tribal communities, but a big way that we, at least at ACL, I don't, only speak from that perspective, have been able to address the issues is that we have been able to talk to people and, and that's been like, and create a sense of community. And that's been a huge anecdote to the social isolation from what we have seen. So it's just, wanted to share that. Next slide, please. Thank you. At this point, I want to share some examples from our programs of what things they have done to kind of combat social isolation in a time when when we've all been staying at home for upwards of a year now. There's other things, and I'll kind of go off the cuff a little bit and talk about some other stuff that I didn't mention in this slide. But it's just been really amazing how innovative our elder programs have been in having different activities. One of the things we talked about with one of our programs was that each program at the beginning of the pandemic gave the elders a red and a green card to put in their windows, because our program provides home delivered meals to elders. The elders were instructed to put a green card up if you're home, because we were doing contactless delivery of the meals. So the person would drop the meal off, knock on the door, and then leave. Well, the elders would put a green card up if they were like, I'm cool, you can just leave my meal, like I'm good to go. We also gave them a red card to put up if there was something wrong. And that way the delivery person could know, like, hey, Joe's got a red card in his window, let's go check on him. Let's call him, let's visit with him, whatever. And so just thought that was a really creative and innovative way that one of our programs was able to still maintain social distancing when we were socially isolating, but also check up on the elders. That was really cool. Yes.
Another thing with that is those cards were big enough that they could be seen from the road.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that someone driving by could see if there was a red card up in the window, that they could let someone know to get the elder help.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And I just thought those were the neatest idea, because it allowed people to stay socially isolated to whatever extent possible, and keep our elders healthy, but also, make sure they know if they need help. I just thought that, and that could probably even go post-pandemic too, is if you could, if somebody, like you said, if somebody's driving by and sees a red card in the window, they know to get help for that elder. So I just thought that was the neatest idea. Another thing that our programs did in a way that was socially distanced. So as we all know, like, vaccines are coming and people are starting to think about opening up. But I just want to, flag some ways that programs, if you're having, some slower reopenings, want to continue social distancing. One of the ways that was done was car bingo. One of our programs had everybody come to a location, a parking lot, and then roll down their windows, and they were announcing the bingo numbers through a megaphone. And then when the person got bingo, they would just honk their horn, and like, it was a good way to get people in the same place, but also, continuing to social distance. So I kind of wanted to share that. Another idea that I wanted to share. Oh, go ahead. Yes, Miss Jackie. Sorry.
And with that, they were parked a parking space apart. So with their windows down, they could also socialize with those parked next to them, which was, it was a way to really break down those barriers of social isolation. And the elders just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. And now that
delivered,
the weather, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, they delivered the prizes in electric carts. They'd run them out in an electric cart to their different cars.
And now that the weather is nice, it's no longer February and freezing, so everybody can kind of be out, enjoy like a little bit of fresh air with your windows down. Another activity that wasn't on this slide, but I think is really interesting, and I want to give them all kinds of credit, is Samish in Washington State, Samish Indian Nation. I work very closely with them, shared with me that they had developed a pen pal program between their elders and the kiddos at a local school, and they were like sharing cards and drawings back and forth when there was more social isolation happening. And they were first of all, they were just adorable. But second of all, like, what we heard was the elders really enjoyed getting the cards from the kids and the drawings and being able to send drawings back. And it was just like a really good intergenerational activity that we just really enjoyed highlighting. So it's not up there because but there were some super cute pictures, and I'm happy to share with Courtney to disperse to the group some of the really adorable things the elders did and how it really helped. The project was called Hello Friend, and it really, I think, helped our elders feel engaged with the community. And it was just a really neat project that Samish put together. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so, so the other thing, like, I kind of touched on this, and I, kind of wanted to go back to it with combating social isolation, was some activities that we found were really helpful when they could encourage cultural sharing and stuff. We really enjoyed hearing about those activities. We had suggested having cooking, some kind, sharing traditional recipes. We'd heard of programs doing that, and even like having, different, different like cooking, like a fun activity that we heard one program trying was like, you could be your own chef and you could make your traditional foods and like videotape yourself like you're on the Cooking Network, and you do the BAM and making, and we could share that with other elders within the community. So it was a good way to like highlight the elders' expertise and life knowledge, but also to share the community, the culture. It was just I thought that was really cool. We also talked a lot in this pandemic time, and things that combat social isolation is activities that share native language. I worked really closely with my colleague from ANA, Sonia Begay, kind of working on this idea, and just the grandparents having that experience with native language. Again, like teaching the kiddos and making sure the language doesn't get lost, and it's just a great intergenerational opportunity. The other thing I will say again about native language is when you're putting out information to the elders, especially, it's very helpful to have information in the native language. I mean, you know, it shows cultural competency. It helps people feel engaged with the like I just can't underscore the importance of native language. I think it's really important in reaching our elders. And I just kind of wanted to flag one more social isolation activity, because that was a big thing we worked on during the pandemic, was just to keep our elders connected. And we had kind of like a phone game where all of the elders called into like a group conference call, and there would be a hat with different questions written on pieces of paper, and the person would like draw a name and draw a question. And of course you could pass if you didn't want to answer it, but it was a way to be like, Joe, what's your favorite thing to do on the weekends? Or, you know, like a way for elders to get to know each other in a group setting and to feel engaged and not isolated. I mean, I know that the pandemic, we're hoping, knock on wood, that it's winding down and people are getting their vaccines, but social isolation just became such an important thing to address during our 15 months of quarantine, especially for our elders, that I wanted to share a bunch of ideas that we had heard from Title VI about how to kind of combat that when dealing with elders. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so that was it. That was what I had for content. I'm happy to answer any questions about social isolation or about Title VI at large. I'm sure folks have questions for Dr. Gray also. So I'm happy to pivot. I'm happy to pivot to that part of the presentation, Courtney.
I addressed a couple things, Jasmine, but you may want to say more about it. One was asking about a picture of the cards, and I just put in that they were red and green cardstock, so they were more durable. Do you have anything else to say about that? Or
I think, you know, the pictures of the cards, I mean, yeah, I think it might be nice to have, make sure that you're educating with the people, like especially the drivers in Title VI, making sure they know what they mean. I think, you know, there's the piece about let's give the elders the cards and make sure the elders know, like, you know, these are the things we're looking for. Do you feel isolated? Do you need to talk to a doctor? Do you need, you know, food? Like, you know, here's the list of things you can use your red card for, but also the other piece of that is community education about where do you go if you see a red card, you know?
have you heard any statistics of elders experiencing more memory loss or hearing loss than typical during the pandemic due to isolation?
I can take that a little bit. So I have not heard about more hearing loss, but I will maybe to veer off topic a little bit and do a shameless plug. So ACL is actually has some Alzheimer's and dementia programming grants that we are currently taking applications for, and tribal entities are eligible for those. So we encourage tribal partners to apply. One of the things we have kind of talked about in the memory loss space, and I don't have like, I'm not the expert on this. My colleague Erin Long is definitely the expert. But the big thing that we talked about is music and memory, and like using music to kind of spur remembering in people with cognitive decline. I like, to be more direct to answer your question, I have not heard specifically about numbers and related to COVID. I'm hoping that there are some studies done and we can share more of that. But to give you a resource, ACL actually has some grants around Alzheimer's programming, and we've done some work with music and memory, which if my email is jasmine.applin@acl.hhs.gov, I can share some of those, or maybe I can put my email in the chat if you would like to, you know, reach out and I can share some of the really cool things we've done with music and memory in the Alzheimer's space. Oh, and again, please come to our Thursday chat, and please let us know if you would like to come to our Thursday chats, if that's something that's interesting to you. We have one from 3 to 4 every Thursday, and there's nothing super secretive about it. Everybody's invited.
Starting right now.
Yeah, starting now. So Dr. Gray and I, right, we'll be hopping over at some point.
There was also a comment about, wishing that the cards would work in Alaska. See if I can scroll up and find that. Great idea. Wish the cards were an option in the rural Arctic villages here in Kotzebue. I know I didn't probably pronounce that right, but
Kotzebue, Alaska.
Kotzebue, okay.
Yeah, out in the rural villages. Just wouldn't work the same way, but it's a great idea.
All right. And, I don't know if flags or if there's some other common type of thing that could be used that, you could get the elders involved in making them, or whatever it is that they could use that would help to, signal someone in the community. We try to keep it culturally relevant and flexible, because what works in one community might not work in another, but there may be something you normally use that you can, tie this in with.
Definitely. And like I said, like those ideas that I had presented were just kind of like shell ideas. There's other things that we've heard of programs, but I think the most important thing is engaging your elders. At least what we found is engaging your elders in a way that makes sense for your community. So it can be prolonged engagement too, because yes, the pandemic will end, but the dangers of social isolation and not, are gonna persist.
We have one person with their hand up who I'm going to
Oh yes,
ask to unmute.
and then I just chatted away.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, hi there, guys. Hi, Dr. Gray. I actually have come across and met you several times at the, what is it? The Sanford conferences. It's Carrie McCarthy, art therapist. Don't know if you remember me,
Yes.
but thank you so much for your guys' work. And I just wanted to say, I actually have been pretty, I'm not working so much this last year and a half, but I just wanted to commend your guys' creativity and devotion to the elders. And it's such an underserved population. So it's not a question. I just wanted to give you guys major kudos.
Thank you.
And thanks for the information.
Sure. And a lot of this information, it comes from our Title VI directors.
Yes.
Yeah. They are unbelievably creative in doing some of these things. I know of one person that did her elder abuse conference was scheduled right after everything shut down last March. And so she had all of this stuff that had come in, the bags and all the stuff to go in the bags. And so she ended up making a CD of powwow music and a copy of the DVD of the last year's conference, and then all of the swag that she had brought in for the conference. And they had a drive-through elder abuse prevention conference. So people would drive through the parking lot and they'd hand them their bag.
That's awesome.
And they could watch the conference from last year on their TV, and they could listen to powwow music. So sometimes it's just a matter of, how do you pivot? And I'm sure you've all learned a lot about that this last year.
Yeah, and in case we do have any Title VI directors on this meeting, or if you do know a Title VI director, they are like rock stars. I kind of glossed over it in the presentation, but there cannot be enough said for what our directors do in non-pandemic times. Sometimes our directors are the managers, the cooks, the drivers, the home delivered meal people, the emotional support. I mean, they just do so much. And then the pandemic happened. And not only were they wearing all of the hats of their usual Title VI job, but they were wearing the hats of making sure people stayed isolated and safe. And I just, if you know a Title VI director, I cannot say enough good things about all of the amazing, like, I know nothing, like I know nothing. It's all the amazing work the Title VI directors do and share with us. And I just cannot thank them enough for the work they did and continue to do. Do we get any more questions?
Couple requests to get on the Thursday chat.
Oh, yes, please send us an email. They are really fun. There is
The
nothing.
emails are listed in the chat.
Cool. Yes, definitely.
Any other questions or comments that anyone has? We threw a whole lot at you.
And Dr. Gray, you can just go to the NIJI website, right? That's just niji.gov.
NIEJI.org.
Org. Okay. Yep. And that's probably the best way to get that info. Just keep glancing around it.
And we really do. When tribes send us copies of things that they've made, whether it's placemats or crosswords or word searches or things that they can make into placemats for the tables, the things that they can send out and do, we try to get them up on our website so other tribes can get ideas and things that they can develop as well. So we really try to share things that can help get other ideas going.
And I will say too, as far as like sharing ideas, also always feel free to send those to Title VI, myself, Cynthia, whomever. We love to send those out in our chat blasts. Those are the other, or our weekly blasts. That's the other thing. If you're interested in knowing more about Title VI, we send a large like newsletter style email on Mondays, and then we just kind of update throughout the week. It's usually has a wealth of information, and we love to highlight the things programs are doing with that. Oh, another thing that just kind of popped into my brain, because I'm just kind of I have like all this super exciting ideas. Community gardens are a huge thing in this time of year, especially, and like gardens at the senior center, growing vegetables and being able to, I mean, you know, you can kind of gather people, but have them be separated, doing their own different gardening stuff. But we have heard of programs doing different gardening projects and being able to grow vegetables and healthy meals for their elders. So I just wanted to kind of, you know, throw that into the conversation, that that's another way that we can get our elders together.
Anything else before our time's up? I don't see any more raised hands. Any more questions? Another email?
I have their emails for you all. So we have a little over 5 minutes or so left. I wanted to mention that in order to receive your CE credits, you will need to use the sign out link that you received via email. I'll also put the link in the chat box as well, just for your convenience. You'll complete that little survey and it will take you to the evaluation for this session. We ask that you please fill out the evaluation. It helps us make sure we are providing information that is relevant and useful. It also helps us plan for future webinars. And again, if there's any remaining questions, you can raise your hand, unmute yourself, or type it in the chat box before we end today. And the next session will start at 1:30. So there's a 15-minute break in between this session and the last one for the day.
I just put our NIJI email address in the chat box and send it to that address, and they'll get it to whoever in our staff is best suited to respond to it. All right. Well, it's been wonderful being with you today.
Yes.
And I hope you think a little more in terms of elder abuse and elder abuse prevention and things that can be done in your community to help keep our elders safe and healthy and socially connected.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.